Hey everybody. We are still on validation. I thought I was completely done with the validation implementation for like the whole form. So the general idea was that, like you hit this and if you come in here, like the entire validate, then that entire form item, the value itself is validated and then you get this message. And what became started becoming really clear to me yesterday, as I started, yesterday was the first day I started working on really doing keyboard validation, is that keyboard validation is pretty is not specific really to Angular and Angular forms. See, the thing is, I kind of had to add an extra layer of validation because um, this guy right here, get validator for token, like it's returning like an abstract control, and all this stuff is so incredibly specific to Angular forms. And I thought that I was going to kind of get caught up in more things like that. So I was like, okay, I need to have like a UI validation layer that was on top of a validation layer, because honestly, like the heartbeat of this entire application is going to end up being like, honestly, this application is like, it's really neat, but it's like very, very limited until I can do import and export. Um, and I didn't even, when I first started this, I knew that that was going to be like the most important thing, but I did not know how important thing is that is. Like, if I had started with that in the very beginning, I would have the coolest 3D things. Um, I would have cool um, really cool like eclipses. I would have smiley faces. I would have all that stuff because I would have files that document that, and I would just be able to upload it, and that's where I could start. I would have something to build on, and I don't now, and that's because I started in this path. So I knew that I needed validation to not just be for the form. And I thought, okay, so but I thought the form level validation was all going to be super unique for Angular. Uh, but I actually kind of jumped to a conclusion there because it actually isn't, other than this one specific situation, as far as I can tell. So UI validation service isn't really a very good name. Probably the better name would be like uh, FC validation, for like form control validation. And then really this function doesn't even need to be in there. There's absolutely no purpose to this function. I should have known that one because I'm literally just passing it up the line. I just had it in my head that I needed to kind of go through these layers of abstraction. And then this one obviously doesn't need to be done either. So what I want to do is rename this to FC validation service and then handle all of the problems that come with that. And then once I do that, I want to get rid of these two functions and just get this information straight from the validation service. Um, and I do think it's super important to do this. Um, and I do think that while it's going to be good to fix it in the file names, it also needs to be fixed in these up here and then throughout wherever else it's broken. So the first thing I'm going to do, I guess the first thing I'll do is just rename this file. I don't know what the best first approach will be to this, but change this from UI to FC. And then I'm going to take this guy and rename it. And I think it's going to, yeah, it broke. I thought it was going to offer to fix it for me, but yeah, there we go. Yes. Yes. Okay, and then I'm going to fix this. I'm going to rename this one to FC as well. I'm not doing any unit tests, but I might end up doing unit tests for this project. I haven't decided yet. Um, FC validation spec. So now in my in here, I want to change this to FC instead of UI for form control validation service. And really, this thing's only job is to create a form, the form um, validators, and that's it. The specific validators. Okay, so this guy's got a problem. That's FC, and then FC, FC, FC. I know that sometimes I really, really, in some circumstances, I really like, um, I really, really do like uh, unit tests. And then in some circumstances, I don't. And I honestly, I just haven't gone through the mental sort of exercise of of sort of figuring out when I really like it and when I don't. Um, that's just one of those things that, like, there's definitely situations and like there's just definitely situations where having a good suite of unit tests is absolutely um, important, and then there's some times that they are just an absolute nightmare and they don't bring any value at all. And I do know that like I remember like there was before Angular with the TypeScript version of Angular. Um, Before that happened, it was really nice to see. And I don't even think this thing uses. Yeah, this one isn't even going to use the FC validator. Um, it's going to use the validation service, the regular validation service. But whatever, we'll figure that out at the right time. All right, so we are back. So yeah, before Angular, I was such a strong proponent of unit tests because like when you would do a version upgrade of something, man, unit tests would just save you, you know. But now with TypeScript, like if they've changed 99% of what unit tests used to save you with, now automatically gets caught by the TypeScript compiler. So it's a bit redundant, but there are definitely still some situations. Okay, so now I want to get rid of this function. And this function. And that's going to break a bunch of stuff. So let's come down here and I don't know, maybe it'll be easier to do this. Oh. Usually you can hold the shift button down and click this. But oh, and this is saying that it can't find it. So that's supposed to be line 60. Hopefully it's in this file. No. What file are you in? Let's see. I'm going to, so this is complaining about the error component. So let's start in that one. That's this guy right here. UI validation service. So that definitely should be renamed to FC validation service. And we don't want FC, we want validation service. So let's just get rid of that altogether. And then, what is your name, Mr.? I'm sure it's just validation service. Yeah. Let's see, go back. Control V. Change this to validation service. Hope for a blue. Yes, thank you. And then looks like I went directly there. So now we'll change this to validation service. So basically this message system, this validation service component was going to the UI validation service. It was handing it the token, then the UI validation service was going up to the validation service and handed it the same token, and then it was the validation service was returning the message or the text back, and then the to the UI validation service, and the UI validation service was returned back to the component, to the validation error component. And basically I just cut out the middleman on that. And like, if that hurts your head, I don't know what to say. It's kind of like, it's a bummer. Like right now in software development, like different sorts of mental things that you are comfortable with change over time, and sometimes you need to think more abstract, sometimes you need to think more procedurally, but you do have to be flexible. You have to be willing to change sort of what you like to think about and all that. And yeah, at this point in time, it's just like we are all about abstractions, and it's just you're gonna have to think a lot about trying to get your abstractions right in your head. All right, so let validation tokens get, and so we're trying to get that from UI validation service. Now, I don't know if I even have a validation service, because I know I need both. The UI validation service shouldn't be called UI validation service for one thing anymore. I want to call it form control, FC validation service. And FC validation service, so we'll save that, and that should break some stuff for us. Now, FC validation service is really the only reason it exists is to create validators. That's its only job in life, is to create validators, because that's the only thing that I think that is form specific or reactive form specific. So I also want validation service. And this is where I want the vast majority of the validation information to come from. Equals inject. I believe it was just called validation service. Oh, and it didn't even ask me, it just brought it in, or maybe we had already brought it in. But we have our validation service. Let's go ahead and look and make sure. Yeah, it's in the services. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, so now I believe I can just call this validation service. And that one is happy. And what is that doing? Get validated. So that was the one place I did not want to change that. I don't know. Oh, all that needed to be was FC validation service. So the one thing I wanted to get was my validators. But one thing I do not want to get from the UI or the FC validation service is the tokens. The tokens should just come from the validation service. There's no get validation token for path. I wonder what the problem is. I thought there was one of these. Get validation tokens. Oh. Yeah, tokens is definitely a better word. So I didn't even fix that. So let's see. So basically, come over here. Let's just make sure we're still working. Okay. So this is like a pain in the butt. There's no question about it. Like going in and just realizing, oh, I need to redo this refactor. is not fun. There's nothing cool about it. It's just kind of a bummer. But it is like the kind of thing that gets harder every single day. So like today on a scale of 1 to 10, it was like a point 0.7. It was a super abstract, but it wasn't that hard to figure out everything that we did there. But like tomorrow, it might have been a 1, and then the day after that, it was just gonna, and then like in a month, it would have been damn near impossible to understand it because all this stuff is very fresh in my head. So this was just the time to do it. There was no better time to do it. So now the FC validation service only has basically okay, we don't need a constructor in there. All this thing does, let's just add this. The only purpose of this service is to convert regular validation functions into Angular forms validators. So like it might have been. It's probably better to call this validators. I think that makes a little bit more sense. Should I rename it FC validation service? Probably. Okay, now this is going to break all over the place. Well, really, it shouldn't break in too many places because validators. Validators service, and then does FC service name, does that make sense? Or is that like it's not that big of a deal that if it doesn't quite make sense, it's nice if they make sense. It's just more pleasant. Like if you're writing code and you're working on a project that you plan to work on for a while, you're going to be looking at this a lot. And like if it's sort of a pleasant thing to look at over time, that can just make life just more and more pleasant. And if it's an unpleasant thing to look at, it can just over time make life less and less pleasant. So I don't know. I think most people would benefit a lot from having a more pleasant life. There's a lot of unpleasantness in the world, so it'd be anything you can do to give yourself a little bit more pleasantness is probably worth doing. So anyways, FC validator service, I think, okay, this one, we're going to rename it. Rename. You used to be able to just click on it and then wait a second and it would highlight it, but that quit working. And I think Angular will fix this for us if we just wait. Wait just a second. Yes. And that is that. So I definitely advise doing these sorts of things as soon as you figure them out. Sometimes, you might end up like it would be a bummer if tomorrow I go, I changed my mind. I want to rename it back to that. But you really do want to do this sooner rather than later because like with these naming things, what will happen is like you named something like based on like you know, you have a certain naming scheme, and then the other names are built off of that scheme of other things that surround that code. And then if you change the scheme on a lower level, then, you know, like it can have a ripple effect throughout the rest of the code. But we haven't really done much with the validators yet. So there is no ripple effect. And this would be harder if it was like we're only validating one field. If we were validating a dozen fields, you know, this would, you know, probably not even be worth doing it. So anyways, yeah, that's that. That's a 20-minute video. That's not too bad. And I think tomorrow I'll continue on the steps that we laid out yesterday, which are highlighted in this function down here. Yeah, this. So first, you know, basically we're just gonna get the value. We should be able to get the value from this event, or yeah, probably get the value from this event and just see if it's cool, because we won't have to do any lookups or anything. Now we actually know like this validate function fog density is not a very generic function, so it knows what its form thing is. So maybe I can get the new value from there, from this form control. That might be better. Um, Either way, I don't think there's a performance difference, because in both cases you're just getting it out of memory. One would be from the event that you have right there, and the other would be on that. In there, there might be some benefit because you want to get the previous, and the previous is only available in the form control. So if you're already gonna put, if you're already gonna like, there is a mental lift, and there's some TypeScript that has to be done to sort of inspect this event. If you there's maybe if you already have to do, if you know you're probably going to have to do the mental lift to get something from the form control, then you've already gotten that mental lift at that point. So then getting the previous value from the form control is not that much different. So I guess that's probably what I'll do. I'll probably get it, even though it is I think it's a little easier to get it from the event. Go to the target and all that other stuff. It's probably better for my own. It'll be easier for me down the line coding this stuff to get it from the form control. So, and it's good practice. So anyways, happy coding, everybody. Bye.